Hello everybody, welcome back to the Dig Site. Was the newly released Jurassic World Rebirth movie an actual good film? Or was it as bad as Dominion? Well, I went with my girlfriend to go watch Jurassic World Rebirth, and in this video I will be giving my personal review on the movie. So kick back, relax, and I hope you enjoy. Something that surprised me was that the writer of Jurassic World Rebirth was David Koepp. David Koepp has been fairly involved when it comes to the Jurassic saga, given the fact that at the beginning of it all, he was the one to write the scripts for Jurassic Park and The Lost World. So the fact that they managed to bring him back for Jurassic World Rebirth script was fairly surprising to me. The plot of Jurassic World Rebirth is a very straightforward story. A small band of mercenaries who are hired by a rich, probably most likely corrupt guy, go to an island and try to retrieve DNA from 3 of the largest creatures on that island. One from the land, water, and sky. They eventually pick up a small family who were previously attacked by one of those creatures, and 5 minutes later, everything goes down the drain, and then the 2 groups are separated and stranded on this remote island. Who saw that coming? But instead of panicking, the mercenaries continue on with their job, trying to retrieve the DNA from these 2 other animals, Quetzalcoatlus and Titanosaurs, and eventually they run into that small family once again at the pickup point. Of course, some people have died throughout this journey, but majority of the characters do end up surviving and escaping the island. I think it's a very good and fun adventure. The movie itself is not trying to be this really elaborate, amazing story that's well thought out. It's just supposed to be fun, and honestly, I quite like that. I love how they implemented that living with dinosaurs would eventually lead to massive problems in the modern world, such as untreatable disease. The plot point may be brief and subtle, but it's still there, and I honestly think it was perfect. The visuals and effects for this movie were absolutely spectacular, in my opinion. Probably some of the best that this franchise has ever seen, which kind of makes sense once you realize that the director of this film is Gareth Edwards. After I watched the film, I realized that Gareth Edwards worked on projects and directed projects such as Godzilla 2014 and Rogue One: Star Wars Story, both projects including some pretty spectacular visual effects. I found the cinematography to be great as well. Like I said before, the visual effects were stunning, and the way dinosaurs blended in perfectly with their environments was done amazing. Apparently some people noticed that there was some poor CGI and green screen spots, I think with the Titanosaur sequence. While watching the film, I didn't notice any of that, but I'll certainly look for that again once I rewatch the film. So now let's talk about the characters of this movie.
I'm taking her home with me.
That may or may not be a terrible idea.
Honestly, I didn't have much of a problem with any of them except for the boyfriend, Xavier. There was no need for him to be joking and funny. I mean, you're on a dinosaur-infested island, and you've nearly died 100 times. Other people have already died. The least you can do is be a little bit serious, just a tad. Although I get it, he is supposed to be the comic relief of the group. Duncan was a very likable character throughout the entire film. His main thing was to keep the children safe and wanted to just protect everyone, especially the family, which leads us into the Delgado family. Yes, they were good in terms of having that second option of playing 2 stories at the same time. It was a good group to follow. It was a good group to follow around and watch because especially they gave us that amazing and iconic river raft scene with the T-Rex. However, it was so unbearable to watch the amount of plot armor that protected them from things. Oh my goodness. Next up to talk about is Scarlett Johansson's character, Zora. Originally, Zora went into the mission thinking only about herself and her financial situation, but later throughout the film, she comes to her senses and realizes that maybe doing this for the money isn't the right thing because if I give these DNA samples to these corporate people, they're just going to sell it and restrict its use and not share it with the rest of the world. So Going into this film, I was very hesitant and worried that she was not the right pick for this role. I thought that she'd be too recognizable from big projects like Marvel and Avengers, and I felt like that would just ruin the taste of the movie for me. I don't really know how to explain it, but while watching the film, I didn't really link her to those other big projects she was in. So that was really nice. I believe her take on this role was very exceptionally well done. It felt very fresh, so I did enjoy her character. Next up is Dr. Henry Loomis, also known as the dinosaur nerd of the group. Now, I'm not hating on that. It's the complete opposite. I am beyond glad that the main character, well, one of the main characters, was a dinosaur lover. I think it was an amazing choice to have it set up like that because it really was the really only other time we had a character such as him was back in the originals with Dr. Alan Grant. For the longest time since 2015? Whenever Jurassic World came out, we've had to deal with Chris Pratt's character, Owen Grady. This super cool, action-packed guy who was jumping on raptors and putting them in chokeholds and killing Dilophosaurus with his bare hands. Dr. Loomis, however, is the complete opposite. He has no field experience, no military training. He's just sort of this useless guy. He sees these animals in the wild and he can't think of anything but just be in awe of watching them, and he appreciates these animals, something again we haven't really seen since the first movie with Dr. Alan Grant. It was especially amazing seeing that beautiful moment between Henry Loomis and that Titanosaur. That was amazing. Martin Krebs was the rich businessman guy who hired all these mercenaries at the beginning of the film. He's also the reason why they're all stuck on that island. And eventually, down the line, he betrays everyone, and then, big surprise, he's evil. However, no matter how deep his pockets were, he still ended up in the D-Rex's mouth. Everyone else to be considered in this film is basically just fodder for the dinosaurs. The only one who really stood out more than the rest was that French guy who survived longer than everyone else, and he's the one who got eaten by the Quetzalcoatlus. Although saying that, when those certain characters died, it seemed like their death left a mark on you, and it almost felt heavy, even though they got barely any screen time. You could just tell that they all had some sort of long history with one another, and that they were all, fairly close friends. That when they died, the reactions from both Duncan and Zora hit me and sold that emotional toll that they just lost this friend whom they've known for so long. Maybe it's just me, but that's how I felt when I was watching the film. Except for Bobby. Bobby's death was very well deserved, and I was happy when he died. Alright, now for the real all-stars of this film, and the only reason why people go to watch these movies, the dinosaurs. There's actually quite a long list of prehistoric animals that were either briefly shown or had pivotal roles in Jurassic World Rebirth. Those animals include Tyrannosaurus Rex, Aqualops, Compsognathus, they had a really cool design by the way, I absolutely loved the red and black, Parasaurolophus, Dilophosaurus, Mosasaurus, Quetzalcoatlus, Spinosaurus, Apatosaurus, Velociraptor, Titanosaurus, Ankylosaurus, Megalodon jaws, and potential reports of a Titanoboa. I feel like I know what people are referring to when they saw that Titanoboa, but I'm not quite too sure. Dunkleosteus, although I have no idea how they managed to resurrect that guy. Mutodons, and of course, Distortus Rex. There are probably more animals that I missed, so I do apologize. These are all the ones that I could just remember off the top of my head. Now, let's first start off with diving into the main attraction, the Distortus Rex. I do admire its design. It is not pretty to look at whatsoever. It has the face only a mother could love, but I love it. It was this massive creature, it was heavy, it was threatening, it was overall a really cool creature. And since it's so distorted looking, that's why it's called the Distortus Rex. It really sells that failed experiment look to it. Unfortunately, I feel like the Distortus Rex got the short end of the stick because it wasn't really as present in Jurassic World Rebirth as many probably would have liked. But I do believe it got its fair share of screen time. I personally do believe it should have been featured a little bit more, but it's okay. Also, people have been saying that the D-Rex has a higher kill count than any other creature featured throughout the Jurassic saga, which... no? With humans, maybe, but in the grand scheme of things, I think that title still belongs to Indominus Rex from Jurassic World. I mean, that thing killed absolutely everything, and it was a total monster. And speaking of monsters, I like how that the mutants of this film, the D-Rex and Mutadons, actually looked like monsters. Unlike the Indominus Rex or Indoraptor, where they were classified as monsters, but they looked more like actual dinosaurs than anything else. In some instances, yes, their behavior was very monster-like and very aggressive, but physically speaking, they looked like actual dinosaurs. Going off that, I much prefer the mutants being the villains of the movie, speaking more on the end of the Mutadons, rather than having something like a Velociraptor or Spinosaurus, because animals such as them wouldn't act the way they did in the movies. They wouldn't be acting overly aggressive, they wouldn't be having some sort of vengeance towards the humans, deliberately going out of their way to try and kill them. Because a Velociraptor isn't supposed to be this bloodthirsty killing machine of a monster, it's just supposed to be an animal. Which is another thing that I liked about this film. This movie treated dinosaurs like actual animals. We got shots of them sleeping, lying down, being curious, hunting, and just doing everyday things. The only time dinosaurs were in attack mode was when the humans were either stealing their eggs, like the Quetzalcoatlus, or the humans were invading its territory, like the Tyrannosaurus Rex raft scene. It just gave the dinosaurs that sense of realism, and I loved it. The designs are great as well. The Spinosaurus got a much needed upgrade, and I'm glad that it had the spotlight once again. Near the beginning of the movie, when the boats crashed onto the shore and that girl's like trying to drag the equipment up the shoreline, at first, I didn't even notice that Spinosaurus laying on the rocks, like in the distance. It wasn't until it moved where I actually noticed there was a dinosaur there. I enjoyed seeing the T-Rex once again, obviously. Honestly, probably one of my favorite representations of this animal throughout the entire Jurassic series. This time around, it actually felt threatening. It was really heavy. It wasn't malnourished like it was back in Jurassic Park, but obviously there was reasonings behind why that Tyrannosaurus Rex looked like that. And not to mention, it was menacing, something that I feel the other films sort of lacked when it came to representing the Tyrannosaurus Rex. I also thought that the behavior it showed was amazing. It felt like a real animal at certain points because it was showing curiosity and wasn't just instantly being aggressive. Also, why does the T-Rex just pull a Houdini when the raft is inflated? Now, something that a lot of people are having problems with, especially with this film, is the lack of appearances dinosaurs like Spinosaurus and T-Rex and Velociraptors make. Because they show up and then are never seen again throughout the entire movie. Personally, I don't have a problem with that. I actually quite like that. I was fairly surprised when the Velociraptor only had quite literally 5 seconds of screen time and that was it. But honestly, I'm quite happy it got limited screen time. They have been front and center for the past 6 movies, and quite honestly, I'm glad that they didn't linger on the Velociraptor too much and they decided to give the spotlight to other dinosaurs like Spinosaurus and Mosasaurus, etc. I honestly think that it was an excellent choice giving dinosaurs their respective screen time in their environments, and then after their sequence of events, they moved on and gave the spotlight to another animal. It's supposed to feel random. You're going to all these different locations on this island. You never know what you're going to run into, and I feel like it's a much more realistic way of showing not only off the dinosaurs, but also the island itself. It makes you feel as if you're exploring an actual island full of diverse life, and not just running around in circles constantly, seeing the same thing. Overall though, I really enjoyed seeing all the unique creatures they used, especially ones like Dunkleosteus and the Megalodon reference I thought that was absolutely brilliant. And personally, I just thought it was a blast seeing all these creatures in action once again. Alrighty, now that we've gone over everything else, I think it's finally time for me to give some of my own opinions and my own thoughts after watching the film. First, I'd just like to mention that they referenced a lot of things, especially from the past films and the 2 books. Depending on how you see that is good or bad, but that's your opinion. I, for one, don't mind it, but certainly at some points it feels really lazy. Adding the river raft scene with the T-Rex I thought was great, that it hasn't been used yet, and finally throwing that concept onto the big screen was an amazing call. That was 10 out of 10. It was a really good throwback to the first Jurassic Park book. Also, can we just acknowledge the real MVP of this movie? That yellow raft. Oh my goodness. It was clawed at, chewed on by an animal with one of the strongest bite forces of all time, of all creatures. And not once did that thing pop. Some of the other references I can't be as enthusiastic towards, unfortunately. The part where the Delgados are hiding from the Mutodon in that gas station is a callback to the first movie with the kitchen scene, with the Velociraptor. The only different part that I liked was how the Mutodon entered the gas station through the roof and it was sort of hanging upside down like a bat. That was pretty clever, but apart from that, that's the only thing I can really give it credit for. Another thing that was shown was obviously at the beginning of the movie in the museum with the banner of when dinosaurs ruled the earth. And it was falling because they were taking down stuff. Again, call back to the first Jurassic Park movie. Whatever, sure. Now, I must admit something. While watching this movie, I was fairly confused on the lore. The characters kept mentioning a park. Now, while watching, I couldn't really connect if they were talking about the original park, like in Jurassic Park, or if they were talking about Jurassic World, or if they were referencing some completely other different park. I didn't watch any spoilers. I didn't watch trailers, breakdowns, or theory videos, nothing. So, going into this movie, I was assuming that this was going to be a reboot of the entire Jurassic franchise as a whole. I thought that this was going to be the beginning of its own series and have no tie-in with the previous films. So if anybody can explain to me and just fill me in with the lore aspect and where Jurassic World Rebirth sits on the timeline of things, that would be very much appreciated. I've yet to do any of my own research because I've been busy writing the script for this video. So just let me know in the comments, please, and that would be much appreciated. And talk about that beginning piece. Wow. I mean, wow. How did the state-of-the-art lab fall to pieces, inflicting mass casualties? Was it because of a system failure? No. Was it because of sabotage, perhaps? Don't be silly. No. Stop that. No. It was a Snickers bar. Yeah, this idiot thought it was a good idea to bring a chocolate bar and then drop the wrapper. This all could have been prevented. All of it. If he didn't litter. I mean, for an area that is supposed to be people wearing hazmat suits, immense safety precautions, and a sterilized workplace area, why would he bring a candy bar into the lab? I mean, that just seems like a stupid thing to do, no? Given the fact where you work, too. And also, not to mention, why is your first instinct to drop the wrapper and litter? Honestly, it's a good thing that the D-Rex was on top of it and punished him for his illegal actions. This will now make all the second graders think twice before littering and dropping candy wrappers onto the floor. When I first saw that the lab was InGen property, I was really excited. But after the film and thinking back on it, I was really wondering why it didn't belong to Biosyn. The overall setup of the lab really screamed Biosyn as well. I mean, you had the white panels all over the laboratory, you had everybody wearing the hazmat suits like they did in Dominion, but it was InGen? Although, since it is InGen, I think a better question is, why didn't they just make this island Isla Sorna, Site B? Next, I want to talk about the death scenes, because honestly, they were pretty well done. I thought they were amazing. They had, I believe, the right level of violence and gore to them. The scene where Dr. Snickers gets eaten by the D-Rex I thought was amazing. I thought it was a brilliant way of starting the film, showing that the Distortus Rex means business. I honestly couldn't believe my eyes when I just watched that massive head rise above the rock, revealing that still alive man in its mouth. Another one to mention would be Bobby, and how the Spinosaurus jumped up onto the boat and clamped its jaws on him, dragging him away in front of that little girl, terrorizing her. That was really well done. Like I mentioned earlier in this video, I was beyond happy when he died. He introduced this amazing gun that could kill anything within like seconds because they were these like neurotoxins or whatever. And then 4 minutes later, he died with the gun. In his defense, it was not the gun's fault. It was his god-awful aim that was the problem. I would have liked to see a little bit more ruthlessness, especially towards the main cast, killing them off. Like the boyfriend at the beginning of the movie where the Mosasaurus tips over their little boat. That would have been a really good chance for the boyfriend to be the first victim. It just lessens their plot armor and gives that real feeling and believability that there's actual risk to their actions, and thought that not everybody is going to survive this trip. Because eventually it gets kind of repetitive to the point where you know that nobody's going to die anymore. And then it just becomes a case of predictability and it just gets flat out boring. And there are many examples of where characters should have died, but plot armor saved them. For example, Duncan at the end of the movie, he should have sacrificed himself. He had the flare going, he was yelling at the Distortus Rex. Like, there was no chance, no possible way where he should have survived that. Another person who should have died was the father of the Delgado family. There should have been a part in the movie where he sacrificed himself or something, because earlier in the movie, it showed that he broke his ankle or something. And even with the sequences that followed after that, he needed a stick to walk around and he was hobbling all over the place. And yet mid-movie, his ankle miraculously heals by itself 24 hours later. So, it could have been one of those things where they were being chased by something, maybe a velociraptor, and his ankle's too badly injured to run, and so he decides to face off the face. Let's be honest, he'd get absolutely mugged, but I'm just saying, he should have sacrificed himself given the fact of the severity of his injury. However, there is one character that surpasses all of them when it comes to plot armor. I really hoped that this character died, and that is the little girl. I'm not a psychopath, I swear. It's just every single time this girl was shown in a scene, she should have died. It was beyond ridiculous. The amount of times she should have been eaten by something was around 500. But of course, they could never kill off a child. No, don't be stupid. Especially with that scene with the river raft where the T-Rex picks up the raft and the audience is supposed to be like, oh my gosh, the T-Rex just got the girl. And then 5 seconds later, she pops up. Okay, it was like, ah. If I was in that situation, I'd be begging the director to kill off my character by a T-Rex or something. One thing that I feel like these Jurassic films need to stop doing, and they're dragging this idea along still, is dinosaurs are no longer cool to look at, so let's make our own monsters. It worked well for the Indominus Rex, but now I feel like it's being overused too much. And I feel like the way to fix that, they need to just find a new way, or at least a new excuse, rather than dinosaurs are no longer cool to look at, because that's just really stupid. Looking at this film, if you were to scrap the Jurassic title and the engine logo, this movie could have very well been its own standalone dinosaur survival adventure film. Sometimes it didn't even feel as if I was watching a Jurassic World movie. Now, I mentioned that I didn't watch the trailers or any promotional material like that at all. That's because I do not like spoilers. I find them very distasteful, and when I watch them, it sort of kills the vibe of the movie for me. I don't know, really. I don't know. However, not watching any of the promotional material may have saved me, because a lot of people are saying that the trailer spoiled the entire movie for them. Apparently there was no surprise left, but luckily for me, since I didn't watch any of that, the entire movie was a surprise. I see this film being very divided amongst fans. Already I'm seeing people say that this was a pretty decent film, giving it a rating of around a 6 to an 8 out of 10, where others are saying that this movie's awful and giving it a rating lower than 5. Of course, my opinion may change from either watching other people's reviews and points to just rewatching the film and realizing certain things, but only time will tell. Will there be an extended version of Jurassic World Rebirth? I know they did it with Jurassic World Dominion, but I honestly can't hold out high hopes for Rebirth. And for my final thought, is Jurassic World Rebirth rewatchable? Personally, I think it is. I feel like I can just shut my brain off and watch it. It's got a really simple story, the action is there, and overall, it's just a fun adventure. I do find it much more rewatchable than the other Jurassic World films, such as Jurassic World, Fallen Kingdom, and Dominion. Although Jurassic World it's a little on and off. So, what is my ranking of Jurassic World Rebirth compared to the other films that have been released? I feel like I've expressed some of the things I really liked about this film, as well as some things I questioned. No doubt about it, the visuals were fantastic, the dinosaurs were amazing, their designs, behavior, etc. And honestly, I just had a really fun time with this film. I came out of the theaters really excited, so that's a good start. Now, before I rank this film, just remember, this is my opinion. I personally would give Jurassic World Rebirth a rating of 8 out of 10. My overall ranking for the films from best to worst would be Jurassic Park, The Lost World, Jurassic World Rebirth, Jurassic World with the Indominus Rex, Jurassic Park 3, Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, and then last but not least, Jurassic World Dominion. You know, the entire time I've been doing this, I've been watching this book, the Lost World book, just begging to fall. It's on like an angle like this, and it's only being supported by the first Jurassic Park book, so I'm changing it now. Nah, it's screwed. Anyway, okay. Well then, that is the end of the video. It has certainly been quite a while since I've posted, and I do apologize for that. If you enjoyed today's video, make sure you leave a like as well as subscribe to the channel. Also, turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any more videos, because I will be uploading much more. Trust me, I know it's hard to believe. I hope those of you who actually watched the film enjoyed it as much as myself. If you didn't, that's okay. Everybody is entitled with their own opinions. I hope you all enjoyed today's video, and I hope you have an amazing rest of your day.